She woke up to the sound of something crashing in the kitchen. Amara jerked upright, heart punching against her ribs as the echo vibrated through the quiet house. For a few seconds, she just sat there, breathing hard, trying to steady herself. But then she heard footsteps, slow, dragging footsteps, moving across the tiles downstairs. She grabbed her phone, but the screen stayed black. It had died sometime during the night. A faint tremor of frustration ran through her. Perfect. Just perfect. Her parents had left yesterday for a 2-week trip, which meant it was just her and the new maid, Mama Tola, in the house. Another sound followed, a low hum, almost like someone speaking under their breath. She got up, opened her door quietly, and leaned into the hallway. The house was dark and still, except for the glow of the security bulb outside filtering weakly through the window curtains. Those footsteps were definitely real and close. She told herself she wasn't scared, not really. Maybe the maid was just cleaning. Some people liked doing chores early, or maybe something fell accidentally. Still, something felt off, something felt wrong. She slowly descended the stairs, one hand on the railing, trying not to make noise. She reached the last step, leaned slightly to peek into the kitchen, and froze. Mama Tola was standing with her back to her, except her feet weren't touching the floor. She was slightly elevated, just a few inches, but enough to make Amara choke on a silent gasp. Her head was tilted to the side, listening to something Amara couldn't hear, and her hands were trembling like someone holding in too much energy. Amara stumbled back, hitting her shoulder against the wall. The sound was tiny, but Mama Tola's head snapped toward her with unnatural speed. "Ah, you're awake," she said in her usual calm tone, lowering herself back to the floor like nothing happened. "Something fell from the cabinet. I was arranging plates." Amara swallowed, hard. "Right." Mama Tola smiled softly, a little too softly. "Go back to sleep, dear. I will make breakfast later." Amara nodded and backed away, refusing to turn her back until she reached the stairs again. The moment she got back to her room, she locked the door, jumped onto her bed, and shoved her face into her pillow. What the hell was that? She wasn't imagining things. She wasn't half asleep. She saw her floating. Her rational brain tried to find explanations, but none of them made sense. Maybe she was dreaming. Maybe she was stressed. Maybe. Her thoughts cut off when the lights in her room flickered twice, then went steady again. She didn't sleep after that. When morning came, the house felt normal again. Sunlight pushed away the fear from the night, and Amara almost convinced herself that last night didn't happen. Maybe she missaw it. Maybe Mama Tola stood on something she didn't notice. Maybe the shadows played tricks. But this hope died the moment she stepped into the sitting room. The dog, their big, confident German shepherd, was curled in the corner, pressing itself against the wall, eyes glued to the corridor where Mama Tola usually walked through. The moment the maid appeared from the kitchen carrying a tray, the dog whimpered loudly, ducked its head, and scrambled away. That wasn't normal. That dog feared nothing, except apparently her maid. Mama Tola noticed Amara standing there and gave her another gentle smile. "Good morning, my child. Come and eat." "Morning," Amara replied stiffly. They sat at the dining table. It was quiet for a while, too quiet. Then Amara cleared her throat. "So, last night, did something fall?" "Yes," Mama Tola said without looking up from the bowl of pap she was stirring. "A plate slipped. I caught it before it broke." Amara hesitated. "You sure that's all that happened?" Mama Tola finally looked at her. Her eyes were dark, calm, unreadable. "Yes, why?" "No reason," Amara said quickly. But Mama Tola kept staring, and for a moment It felt like she was staring inside her, not at her. Just then, Amara felt the urge to break the tension. Um, I'm going upstairs. I need to charge my phone. It was a lie, a weak one, but she needed space to breathe. She left the dining table and hurried upstairs. When she reached her room, she looked for her charger and froze. It wasn't there. She dumped her pillows, checked the sockets, checked under the bed. Nothing. Her charger was gone. She rushed downstairs again. Mama told her, have you seen my charger? The maid paused, spoon midair. Your charger? Yes, I left it plugged in last night. Mama Tola's eyes narrowed slightly. I have not touched anything in your room. She didn't sound defensive. She sounded curious, like she genuinely didn't understand why Amara would ask her. Amara didn't push it. She just muttered, okay, and walked away. But her mind spun wildly. She needed answers. She needed to know she wasn't losing her mind. Throughout the day, strange things continued happening. The light in the hallway buzzed whenever Mama Tola passed under it. The dog refused to enter the sitting room if she was there. The air around her always felt heavier, like carrying a weight. And twice, Amara caught her staring without blinking. At some point, she grabbed a broom just to have something in her hand anytime she walked around the house. She didn't want to believe anything supernatural was happening. She didn't want to believe her maid could float or growl or have a shadow that didn't move normally. But the fear grew slowly but surely. Around noon, she sat on the couch with her hands shaking slightly. If viewers are still following this story, don't forget to subscribe. She's about to find out something she was never meant to uncover. The tension in the house built with every passing hour. Mama Tola hummed while cooking, but it didn't sound like regular humming. The tune didn't sound human. It was too smooth, too low, too layered, like two voices singing at once. By evening, Amara had reached her limit. She decided she was going to call her parents using the landline. Her phone was still dead, and without a charger, she had nothing else. She picked up the landline. Dead. No dial tone. She stared at the phone in disbelief. That line never failed. Never. She walked into the kitchen, forcing herself to be brave. Mama told her the landline isn't working. The maid didn't turn. I know, Amara frowned. What do you mean you know? Mama Tola finally turned, and for the first time there was no smile. It stopped working last night. Amara's heart thumped hard. Why didn't you say anything? Because it is safer this way, the maid whispered. Amara felt cold fear flood her chest. Safer for who? Mama Tola didn't answer. Instead, she wiped her hands on a cloth, looked at Amara with an expression she didn't recognize, and said, there are things you must not call out to. Amara backed away slowly. What does that mean? But Mama Tola didn't explain. She simply turned back to the pot, humming that eerie, two-layered tune once more. Amara didn't stay. She walked out breathing hard, terrified but determined to keep herself together. For the rest of the night, she stayed in her room, sitting on her bed with the door locked and the lights on. She didn't sleep, not even for a minute. Then at exactly 2:14 a.m., she heard whispering, not from the hallway, not from downstairs, from her window. The whisper came again, soft but sharp, like cold fingers scraping lightly against glass. Amara. She froze, every muscle in her body tightening at once. Her breath hitched in her throat as she stared at the window curtains, trembling slightly from the night breeze, or what she hoped was the breeze. Her heart hammered loud enough she swore someone outside could hear it. She didn't want to move, didn't want to breathe, but the whisper came again, clearer this time, dragging her name as though tasting it. Amara, whoa, open. Her throat tightened. No, she wasn't going near that window. Whatever was outside, she wasn't stupid enough to check. She reached slowly for her blanket and covered her legs as though thin cotton could protect her from what? A prank, a thief, a the whisper returned, but this time it wasn't one voice. It sounded layered, deep, and high at the same time, like someone speaking with two throats. Amara, why are you afraid? Let me in. She pressed her hand to her mouth to keep from screaming. Her entire body vibrated with fear. She wanted to call Mama Tola. She wanted to believe the maid could help her. But after everything she had seen, everything she had heard, she didn't know what the maid truly was. She considered running downstairs, but the idea of stepping into the dark hallway made bile rise in her throat. She squeezed her eyes shut. Maybe if she stayed quiet, maybe if she didn't react. Suddenly the whisper stopped. Silence. Too much silence. Then a loud, deliberate knock on the window. She gasped and scrambled back on her bed, her spine hitting the wall. Her pulse roared in her ears. She felt tears sting her eyes. Whatever was outside wasn't pretending. It wanted something. The knock came again, slow, heavy, this time followed by a soft chuckle. A shadow passed across her curtains, long, thin, distorted, definitely not human. And then she heard footsteps inside the house coming up the stairs. Her blood ran cold. The footsteps were slow, dragging, heavy, not like Mama Tola's usual silent glide, not like anything she recognized. When they reached the top of the stairs, the whispering at the window stopped completely, as if the thing outside suddenly sensed something else moving in the house. Amara covered her mouth and tried to hold her breath. The footsteps stopped right outside her door. Silence. A terrifying silence that stretched for seconds. Then a minute. Then more. Then something breathed right outside her room, slow, deep, wet. Her hand shook violently as she glanced toward the door. She could see a faint shadow under it, something standing directly behind it. Then she heard it, not words this time, just a smile. Yes, you can hear a smile. A soft curling of breath at the edge of teeth. Then a soft, almost playful tap on her door. Are you awake? Her heart stopped. It wasn't the whispering voice. It was Mama Tola. Amara didn't know whether to be relieved or terrified. She slid slowly off her bed and walked to the door, her legs trembling violently. She placed her hand on the handle but didn't open it yet. Mama Tola, she whispered. Yes, dear, the maid answered. But something about her tone was wrong. Too gentle, too patient, like she was trying too hard. Amara swallowed. Something is outside my window. Mama Tola didn't react immediately. The silence on the other side of the door made Amara's hands sweat. Then the maid spoke again, voice firmer. Open the door. Amara hesitated. Every part of her screamed not to. Just open the door, dear. Something about the way she said dear made Amara's chest tighten. She backed away from the door again. I'm scared, she whispered. Then came the knock. Not on the window this time. On her door, slow, deliberate, tap, tap, tap. Open the door, Amara. She pressed her back against the wall, shaking her head fiercely. I don't think that's you. Silence. Then the maid's voice changed, not loud, not angry, not shouting, just lower, darker. Good, you're learning. The shadow under the door shifted. Then the footsteps moved away. Down the hallway, down the stairs. Amara didn't move for several long minutes. She felt trapped, suffocated. She reached for her phone again, even though she knew it wouldn't come on. Nothing. She pressed both hands to her face and tried to calm herself. When she finally dared to peek through her window curtains, the outside was empty. Nothing there. but the air still felt wrong, like something heavy had been watching her, and walked away only because something else arrived. Her chest rose and fell rapidly. Her mind spun. Her room felt too small, too dark, too unsafe. She whispered to herself, I can't stay here. I can't stay in this room. She unlocked her door, opened it slightly, and peeked out. The hallway was dark but silent. She stepped out carefully. Every footstep felt loud, even though she tried to move quietly. She made her way downstairs, gripping the railing with sweaty palms. She spotted the living room and kitchen lights glowing faintly. That meant Mama Tola was awake. Probably she wanted answers. She needed answers. She walked into the kitchen and saw the maid sitting at the table, not cooking, not cleaning, just sitting still, too still. Her eyes were open, staring at nothing, her hands clasped together on the table. Amara swallowed and whispered, Mama Tola. The maid didn't blink, didn't move. Amara stepped closer. Mama Tola, something was outside my window. Slowly, the maid turned her head toward her, but not like a human would. It was stiff, mechanical, like her neck wasn't built for the motion. Come here, Mama Tola whispered. Amara stayed where she was. What's going on? Why is something calling my name? Why did the landline die? Why? You are being haunted, Mama Tola said quietly. Amara froze. By what? The maid stood very slowly, her expression unreadable. A thing older than this house, older than your family name, and it has finally found you. Amara shook her head, tears forming. Why me? What did I do? You were born, Mama Tola replied. That was enough. The girl felt her throat tighten. Then what are you? Are you supposed to protect me? Mama Tola stepped closer and Amara's fear returned instantly. I am here because your grandmother bound me, she said softly. Half servant, half guardian, half prisoner. But I cannot stop what comes tonight. Amara's breathing hitched. Then what am I supposed to do? The maid leaned close enough that her whisper brushed Amara's ear. Survive. The lights flickered violently, and both of them turned toward the window as a deep, cold voice echoed across the room. Found you! If you're still watching, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss what happens next. She's about to face something no human should ever see. The voice outside was low, guttural, like gravel scraping over steel. Amara's blood ran cold and she felt her knees buckle. Mama Tola stepped in front of her, calm yet radiating an energy that made Amara's skin crawl. It's here, the maid said softly. Stay behind me. The shadows in the room began to twist unnaturally. The curtains fluttered as though a windstorm had entered, but the air was still. The lights flickered violently, throwing long, warped shadows on the walls. Amara's heartbeat pounded in her ears as the voice outside whispered again, closer this time. Amara, come to me. Her body trembled, frozen in place. Then a shadow moved across the window pane. Long, thin fingers pressed against the glass. Not human, not human, not human, she repeated in her mind. Mama Tola's eyes narrowed. She muttered words Amara didn't understand, a harsh, low chant that seemed to vibrate the room itself. The shadows around the maid grew darker, twisting into jagged, smoke-like forms. Amara could feel them pressing against her, cold and heavy. Suddenly, the window shattered with a deafening crash. Glass sprayed across the floor. The figure climbed through with long, pale limbs, its eyes burning red, mouth stretched unnaturally wide as it hissed, reaching toward Amara. Amara screamed. She stumbled backward and hit the wall. She wanted to run, but Mama Tola's hand gripped her shoulder with unexpected strength. Do not move, Mama Tola commanded, her voice sharp and authoritative. The creature lunged at her. Mama Tola shifted instantly, a blur of motion. Her hands traced intricate symbols in the air, black marks glowing faintly on her skin. Her shadow stretched unnaturally along the walls, horns forming in its silhouette. The creature screamed and staggered back, but it wasn't defeated. It circled, long fingers twitching, hissing threats and promises of pain. Amara's eyes widened as she watched her maid transform, not fully but enough. Veins darkened, a faint smoke rising from her skin, her shadow tearing and twisting into monstrous shapes. "Amara, hi!" Mama Tola yelled. Amara ducked behind the kitchen counter, shaking violently. She pressed her face into the cold surface, peeking just enough to see the battle unfold. The maid's chant grew louder, filling the house with a vibration that resonated in her chest. The creature lunged again, and this time the maid met it head-on, their collision shaking the floorboards. Amara wanted to scream but couldn't. Her mouth went dry, and fear paralyzed her. Her mind raced with every nightmare she had ever imagined, now real and alive before her eyes. The fight raged across the kitchen, knocking chairs over, sending pots clanging to the floor. Mama Tole grabbed the creature's wrist with both hands, muttering words Amara didn't understand, and the creature shrieked, dragging something invisible across the room. Amara's stomach churned as she watched the maid's shadow flicker violently, horns growing larger, smoke rising like black fire around her. Then suddenly, with a final scream from the creature, Mama Tola dragged it towards the broken window. "Go!" she shouted at Amara, her voice barely human now. Amara didn't hesitate. She scrambled to the opposite corner of the kitchen, eyes wide, tears streaming. The creature thrashed, screaming, clawing at Mama Tola, but the maid's grip was firm, unyielding. Then, with a blinding flash and a gust of cold air, both of them vanished through the window. The room went deathly quiet. The only sound was Amara's own rapid breathing and the faint dripping of water from the broken window. Glass glittered on the tiles like tiny stars, and she felt her body trembling from head to toe. For long moments, she couldn't move. Her legs refused to obey. Her mind replayed everything she had seen: the chanting, the glowing marks, the shadows, the horns, the smoke. It didn't make sense. Nothing about it did, and yet she couldn't deny it. Then she noticed something on the table, a small folded piece of paper. Hands still shaking, she picked it up. Written in a Mama Tola's neat, almost impossibly perfect handwriting were the words, "You are safe for now. A guardian will return when you turn 18. Never open your window at night." Amara sank to the floor, clutching the note to her chest. Relief washed over her for only a moment before the memory of the creature's eyes returned, red, burning, filled with hunger. She knew this wasn't over. Hours later, the sun rose, painting the broken glass with soft light. The house looked normal. The kitchen was silent. The shadows seemed to obey gravity again. Her phone was still dead. Her charger nowhere. The landline remained silent. And yet, despite everything, she was alive. She spent the entire day cleaning the kitchen, every movement slow and deliberate. Every time she caught her reflection in the window, she flinched. The fear that had gripped her the night before hadn't gone. It had settled deep inside her chest, a constant reminder that the world was not as it seemed. By evening, she had come to a decision. If she wanted to survive, she had to learn everything she could about her family, the house, and the maid she had once thought was human. She had to prepare, and she had to stay alert. As darkness fell, Amara sat by the window, wrapped in a blanket, still clutching the note. She wanted answers, but she knew she couldn't find them tonight. Not yet. All she could do was wait and remember. Remember the words, the battle, the shadow, the horns, the smoke. Then, as the clock ticked toward midnight, she heard it. A whisper outside her window. Just a soft, familiar hiss, barely audible over the wind. "Amara, I'm back." Her breath caught in her throat. The words weren't angry. They weren't threatening. But they carried a weight that froze her blood. She shivered and pulled the blanket tighter around her. She knew what it meant. The world she had thought she understood was gone. She would never be the same again. She glanced at the broken window one last time before turning away. She whispered into the empty room as if Mama Tola could hear her wherever she was. "Thank you, I think." Her voice cracked, but she forced herself to take a deep breath. Somewhere in the shadows, she knew the maid was still watching, still protecting her, still ready for what would come next. And Amara understood for the first time that the house she had grown up in was not safe. It never had been. And whatever came next, she would have to face it. If you've been on the edge of your seat this entire time, don't forget to hit like, comment, and subscribe for more chilling stories just like this one. You don't want to miss what comes next because trust me, Amara's story is far from over. She sank back onto her bed, heart still racing, and listened to the wind outside. The house creaked in the darkness, but she no longer felt completely alone. Somewhere in the shadows, a guardian lingered unseen, unstoppable, waiting. And deep down, Amara knew the night was far from over and tomorrow would bring another test she might not survive. But for now, she was alive. The story ends here for now.